Hello and welcome to episode 67 of our SAP on Azure Video Podcast. Today is November 11th, and together with Robert and Goran, we're here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone. So today we have another great episode planned. Amber from Microsoft Digital joins us to talk about end-to-end telemetry with SAP on Azure. And as always, I'm obviously a huge fan when we talk from the own things that we are doing within Microsoft. So I'm really looking forward for Amber's presentation. I know he has some fantastic content prepared, but before we hand over to him, as always, let's quickly look at some of the news from this week. And I actually want to start with a rather long post that was published now on docs.microsoft.com. So Christoph and a few other colleagues from Microsoft, we spent some time to consolidate a lot of information from working with customers, from own implementations on actually how to basically work with Azure Active Directory and SAP. So in this long document, we talk about these different components that we typically see at the customer. So we have an Azure Active Directory, we have a Fiori application, we have the business technology platform, you have your SAP on-premises system. And now very often the question is, well, how do these different stacks work together? What do I need to do to have an identity floating around between all these systems? And this document talks in a very detailed way about different concepts. How can you use the identity authentication service with BTP? What about the groups? How do you do this with the different sub accounts and so on? So it's a long document, but it's really explaining what it is. Why would we recommend this? Or what is the recommendation? Why do we recommend this? And then, well, what are the steps to actually do it? So there are a lot of links, there are a lot of references there, so that hopefully this can be your one place to get started, to read about these different scenarios and then implement it if they make sense in your specific scenario. The next thing that I want to talk about is just, I just saw this yesterday or something like that. So obviously, if you have disks attached to your virtual machine, then you typically, if it's a data disk or something like that, you can just attach a new disk or something like that. But if you need to resize disks, that is now possible in preview without a downtime. So obviously this does not work for the OS disks, but if you have a data disk attached to your virtual machine, then you can do a resizing without shutting down the virtual machine. So there's as always some steps, some preparations that you need to do, but then you just unmount the disks, you run a few parameters to resize the disk, and then you can mount it again, and you have the bigger disk size now available. So I think this is still in preview, but I think that this is a great functionality to easily increase the disks that you have attached to your virtual machines. The next thing is, we talked about this before, and it was already very successful, and luckily we are repeating this whole thing. So there's a Microsoft Datacenter tour, a virtual event. So basically there's the team that typically does the data center tours on site in Amsterdam. They have this online session now where they provide you with, or share with you, some slides where they walk you through some of the content that is available online, and they share some really great insights on what does it mean to run a data center at Microsoft. But then they also have, as last time, guests from SAP there. So Axel Vetter is joining this session again, and we have Dara from the Global Black Belt team again to talk about, well, what does it mean from an SAP perspective to use and run the virtual machines in an Azure data center. So I had attended the first session, or the previous one at least, and it was very, very good. So I'm sure this repeat will also be really, really helpful. Good. With this, I just want to do some shameless advertising for the openSAP course. So the building applications on the business technology platform with Microsoft services is now live. If we actually goes to the first week. So in the first week, we are covering what is the business technology platform, what is Azure, and we're starting to prepare the environments. So looking at setting up a trial account for the business technology platform, setting up a trial account for Azure, and so on. And yeah, we were basically getting started then for week 2 and 3, and 4, where we'll do a lot of or where you can do also a lot of hands-on exercises. There's a GitHub repository available with lots of content, with lots of instructions of how to do this. So if you have not yet signed up, do so and watch the videos, watch the presentations, and then work on the exercises. I can highly recommend this course. Then a week back, so this was just after or while we were recording our previous session, there was a hackathon, an SAP hackathon, about the future of work and living. And the interesting thing, or what I really liked, so it was very open. The participants could use obviously the SAP technologies and then use them to create new scenarios. And the interesting thing there was, from my point of view, obviously that we teamed up. So we also introduced the the Microsoft Power Platform to enable the participants to create low-code, no-code applications, basically. So that was a really interesting event, and we saw a lot of cool scenarios where the participants used the Microsoft Power Platform to connect to an SAP system to build new scenarios. So that was a really, really interesting event there. And now, if you want to learn more about the Power Platform and SAP, there's actually on December 8th a new webinar or a tech briefing happening to extend and integrate SAP solutions with Microsoft Power Platform and Teams. And actually, we have some great speakers. So Alex Taylor, Harald Ventin, and then also Marisol, and she was on our show a few months ago in the meantime, I think, where she also talked about her experience connecting the Power Platform with SAP. I mean, she's also a former SAP employee, so she knows SAP very well, and I'm sure this will be a great tech briefing to really talk about what you can do with SAP and the Power Platform. So with this very brief introduction or brief news for today, I actually would like to hand over to Amber. And Amber, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself, talk about what you do at Microsoft, and then again, I have seen some of your slides already. I'm really looking forward to your presentation then.
Sure, Olga. Thank you. By the way, cool set of information. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
So first of all, Olga, thanks for inviting me on the podcast. Hello, Robert. I'm happy to be here. Let me know when you can see the slide.
Yeah, it's coming up. Now I can see your desktop, and now I can see your slides. Perfect.
Okay. So I'm based out in Dublin, Ireland. Ireland is an unbelievably beautiful country, and you have to visit to trust my word. And I'm currently working at Microsoft in the space of digital transformation, enabling Microsoft to run SP on Azure. At Microsoft, I'm responsible for software development and design from inception through production, project delivery, and driving best practices across teams. Before joining Microsoft, I was working with SAP Labs. Throughout my career, I have worked across different geographical locations on greenfield projects, product benchmarking and development, and driving RFPs and POCs. I expertise in designing end-to-end mission-critical enterprise applications and driving engineering best practices and engineering fundamentals across teams. I've worked in different domains of SAP like S/4HANA, ERP, CRM, and in different line of businesses like finance, sales, utilities, commerce, and supply chain. I also have data analytics, cloud computing, and full stack development experience with expertise in programming languages like ABAP, TypeScript, KQL, and SQL. Then that's me with probably the most beautiful thing in the cosmos, my daughter Venus, since she was just over 10 weeks old. And that's also me reciting a poetry at Bangalore well before pandemic. I'm very
Oh,
passionate about, sorry, you were saying something.
no, sorry, I didn't know you were doing poetry.
Yeah, I do that. So I'm very passionate about poetry, cosmos, and digital transformation. And on a lazy weekend, if you want to have a conversation about either of these topics, please feel free to reach out. Okay, so with that, let's start with the presentation. As Holger mentioned, today I'm going to cover SAP on Azure End-to-End Telemetry and how this will drive innovation and digital transformation for your enterprise business. The features I have built on SAP on Azure Telemetry are used across Microsoft service lines and by Microsoft SAP partners, helping to guide our digital transformation journey ahead. If we at Microsoft can use this to speed up our digital transformation, your SAP enterprise business will achieve the same through SAP on Azure Telemetry. Meet Dude, and he is going to take us on this digital transformation journey. So let's begin. The contents, first I'll talk about SAP Microsoft, their partnership, how SAP digital transformation at Microsoft took place, and why SAP telemetry is required. Then I'll talk about the solution architecture. So I'll walk you through an end-to-end SAP business process and then how the telemetry solution was implemented for that. That will be followed by the demo where I'll simulate and show you how Azure SaaS and PaaS features are transforming the SAP from a black box to a white box, giving you comprehensive monitoring, alerting. Then we'll talk about the key features of telemetry. That will be followed by a user story. And then in the end, I'll talk about our North Star vision.
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft and SAP have more than 25 years of partnership, helping their customers to evolve and transform to achieve critical business goals. One of the shining examples of this partnership is the recent Microsoft Teams integration across SAP Solutions portfolio, which brings the collaboration to the next level. Both the companies have combined the market-leading business application with the market-leading business collaboration platform. Now for Microsoft, SAP is an essential partner for its digital transformation. We at Microsoft use SAP to run most of our business operations, including mission-critical functions like finance and HR. Microsoft also runs one of the largest SAP instances in the world, and that we use a wide variety of SAP applications, including S4 and then ERP business suite. So we have finance, sales and distribution, HR, supply chain management, global risk compliance, global trade services, and also a wide range of SAP SaaS solutions like Concur, SuccessFactors, Ariba, etc. At Microsoft, we also use SAP to drive several enterprise services, and that includes line of businesses like supply chain, finance, HR, and commerce. We also have more than 100K users using SAP directly or indirectly. Now, Holger and Robert, there is a famous quote from Rumi: "What you seek is seeking you." SAP was seeking a hyperscaler to migrate its own critical IT business landscape to cloud. So SAP assessed the major hyperscalers, and guess what? They went for Azure. Azure provided with the security, flexibility, and scalability that SAP IT was looking to optimize its global business. Today, a good number of SAP IT business landscapes are running on Azure. Now let's talk about SAP digital transformation at Microsoft. As I was telling, that business across Microsoft, whether they are based in North America, Brazil, Europe, India, or Singapore, they use SAP for their back office operations and processes. Many of these business process owners, they had no way to track their specific process once it entered the SAP domain. So SAP processes were like a black box to the vast ecosystem of Microsoft processes. And due to this black box nature, we could not easily assess our overall system health.
Mm-hmm.
The problems happening in SAP, in the end-to-end SAP pipeline, they were difficult to identify and problematic to troubleshoot. To put bluntly, what happened in SAP stayed in SAP. Now, this black box nature of SAP led to the solution, SAP on Azure Telemetry. So what we did, by leveraging Azure SaaS and PaaS feature, it transformed and fundamentally opened up the SAP as a black box into a white box, giving us valuable insights, comprehensive monitoring and alerting on SAP data. Teams at Microsoft who use SAP to run their work processes are now getting benefited with the key insights delivered to them. Many of the engineers, with this newfound visibility in the work stream, they can pinpoint and predict problems before it occurs, thus transforming the way how service health is done at Microsoft. The troubleshooting also becomes proactive and efficient. It also minimizes the revenue losses and key business intelligence are delivered. Second law of thermodynamics, it states that entropy of a system will always increase. And any legacy SAP on-prem system, it's get applied very well. For engineers, actually, if you look at any old SAP on-prem models, years and years of customization and continuous exponential increase of data had taken its toll on SAP system. For engineers, the challenge was twofold. They did not have any smart tooling available that can help ensuring the application they have deployed are working fine until the feedbacks are solicited through some end user escalation or through tickets. And the second problem was that in the on-prem SAP, there was no central solution available with respect to data analytics or hypercare reporting or end-to-end business process overview, all the components required to drive sustainable development in the space of digital transformation. SAP on Azure Telemetry became the lighthouse which guided the engineers and service operations to the shore from the sea of complexity. Telemetry provided the engineers with valuable information like spikes and anomaly information that helped them to see the hidden bottleneck and then refactor the poor performing code and processes. For the second challenge, telemetry provided smart data analytics, and this is now included as a modern pillar for driving critical business processes for SAP at Microsoft. For the service operation, this has been the biggest blessing as they are now applying the valuable insights delivered by telemetry, basically the what and the why part, to drive the how part of an issue. Thanks to telemetry, service operations have become more efficient, and that has resulted in better support with minimum customer issues. Thus, SAP on Azure Telemetry, it helped our agile team to achieve faster time to deployment with increased operational and engineering efficiency. Next, why do we need telemetry? And in the context of SAP, why it is required? Holger and Robert, you guys must have seen that with majority of the SAP projects, the custom design and the infrastructure, it follows a monolithic architecture. Companies and projects today, they want to grow faster, to move further, and they didn't have much time to implement best practices. This approach, however, comes with a number of trade-offs, like poor flexibility and scalability, interdependency on the engineering team, and most important, unreliability of running a cloud-based business with either SAP as a backend or as a part of distributed system. SAP on Azure Telemetry churns out all these trade-offs and increases your team's productivity. With the tailor-made infographics delivered to your organization, you can pinpoint the bottlenecks and the pain point, and your engineers can remove them, thus increasing your team's productivity. In the further slides, I'll show you how SAP on Azure Telemetry has increased productivity for SAP system business processes at Microsoft. The second USP of SAP on Azure Telemetry is user centricity. It enables you to innovate on the user experience. With SAP on Azure Telemetry, you can build cloud-based apps and features that best serve the customer interest. In our case, the solutions that I've built are not only used across Microsoft line of businesses, but also by our SAP partners. Two of the leading Microsoft SAP partners are using these features to drive global monitoring system in invoice and sales order management for tax. Then reduced cost of operation. With this new unimagined clarity on business process issues, SAP on Azure Telemetry helps you to reduce the cost of operation. If you are running a SAP system which is fragile, spaghetti, and is a very high latency system, then it can make the situation worse for the customers. When you are running a live system and when customer goes to place an order and the order confirmation does not appear immediately, or if there are any tax bound errors in the pricing due to some SAP backend integration of communication issue, that will impact your customer. And this impact goes way beyond poor experience. It results in wasted resources, including costing delays and breach SLAs and lost revenue. With SAP on Azure Telemetry, you get comprehensive monitoring, alerting, and automated tickets that keeps your organization well ahead of the curve. You and your team are not the one with red face at the end of an escalation. You have caught the problem before it impacts the user, and hence you are saving the cost related to triage. Now I'll talk about SAP business process flow, and the process flow I'm covering here is the order to cash process. Order to cash process, it integrates the finance and SD modules in the ERP system of SAP. And it's universal to any organization who sells goods and uses SAP. There are other end-to-end business process flows in SAP like procure to pay, meter to cash, quote to cash, record to report, and telemetry can be applied to any of these business processes. So when a customer goes and places an order, like say when someone goes to buy Xbox or Azure subscription, this information is ingested to SAP inbound system through iDocs or other means. And then sales order is created and the order to cash process is started. So after the sales order, we have delivery if the good is a physical one, like a Surface laptop or Xbox. If it's not a physical good, if it's like a subscription-based product like Azure, then directly the invoices are created, followed by accounting document, and then the print process, it concludes the process. Now, how do we capture telemetry for this process? So the answer for that is finding out the diagnostic event in the end-to-end business process where we will capture the telemetry. These are the diagnostic events. So diagnostic events means the occurrence in the end-to-end process where business critical actions takes place. Like in this case, sales order create or change, invoice create or change, accounting document post, and a very common attribute to all of that, which is critical from the compliance perspective, the tax calculation. If anything goes wrong with tax calculation or sales order creation or change, these things will impact your revenue and SLA. So these are the places from where we will capture telemetry information.
And Amber, just a quick question. So these flows, and this is what we are doing also at Microsoft internally, right? So yes. Obviously we have the order to cash flow, but the important thing is that this scenario is really something where we have applied this telemetry framework to get better insights, because we had some issues. We didn't know exactly where we are, basically, in which process a sales order is. And now with this telemetry framework, we can get this information and make this information really accessible, so that the dude that you showed before has really these insights, going really from a black box approach to a white box, that we can really see what is happening within the SAP process flow.
Exactly. Yes.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Then the solution architecture. So this is where I'll illustrate how the user request flows from, when someone places an order through Microsoft channels, then to SAP, and then to Azure, and then to Power BI. By end of the flow, when I'm done with explaining the whole process, you will understand how the end users, the stakeholders, engineers are getting benefited from the valuable insights which is delivered to them. You will see how we are capturing informations like which process user uses the most, what are the pain points, how these things can be changed. All that information will be covered in the next slide. So the process starts, when a customer goes and place an order for Microsoft products like Surface or Xbox or Azure. The user action data, it's come to SAP inbound ingestion through iDocs or any other services. And then on-premise SAP user will create sales order automatically, or a process will trigger the sales order. And this kicks off the order to cash process. So I've just talked about the order to cash process, which is covered in the section D. So this is where the diagnostic events takes place, where we are going to capture the telemetry solution. Now, a very universal framework with any distributed SAP system is to have a non-SAP connected with the SAP. So, telemetry is not a new solution. A lot of organizations have built telemetry, but the way information is captured between SAP and non-SAP and drives business value in this case is unique and innovative. So take any SAP big distributed system, you will have a number of non-SAP systems connected to SAP, and we need them for critical informations like tax or payment gateway service, or for example, to provide any connection if you want to get information from trade bureaus. So a number of processes where we need outside SAP world information, and usually these systems are like web services or any other platforms. So how SAP communicates with them, most of the time we have a middleware. In this case, you see this middleware had this JCO, a Java connector, which allows SAP to communicate with the non-SAP system. So when sales order is created or when invoice is created, the SAP gateway service, SAP gateway data is passed to the middleware, where it gets converted into the XML and is sent to the external web service through SOAP service. Now, the external service, it processes the data in real time and it returns the result back to us. Now that's what the end-to-end process is. Now let's see how the telemetry framework is capturing this information. So this section right here is the framework that I've designed to capture anything going wrong with this process. When accounting document is posted or when any diagnostic event takes place, you have a code block getting triggered, and this is what invokes the telemetry API. At step G, this is where the runtime data is passed from a ABAP stack to the telemetry API. Then H, it's very critical, the plugin. This plugin is put right at the node where SAP is communicating with the non-SAP system, and it provides us with crucial information that we need to capture performance anomaly. The plugin passes information to the API, where I have written core algorithm that use a timestamp based feature to predict performance bound anomalies. I is the telemetry dynamic configuration. So this solution is built by our Microsoft digital platform team, and it allows you to build out payload dynamically. Then step J, this is the core telemetry API. So this solution, it processes information, processes data, and build insightful information that is sent to REST and then to the Azure side. At step number K, this is a background process to capture the information. Now, what I've done with this solution is I have taken an asynchronous mode of data capture. There was a small trade-off of taking this approach. A few microseconds delay with capturing the telemetry, but it ensured 99.99% of data consistency between SAP and Azure. Hence, I took this approach. And in a moment, I'll talk about how this approach works. Now, for any critical failures, because telemetry is near real time, say for any critical revenue impact for which we cannot wait, for the information to send to Azure side and then comes to your, channels or tickets, the framework, it triggers mail automatically, And this has information like what's the revenue impact, what's the user impact, etc. Now, let me cover how the data is captured in the telemetry API. So I'll quickly explain this. So there is a concept of logical unit of work in SAP, and it's really critical to design any algorithm or solutions in SAP. So what I'm doing is I'm just mapping out the high level flow, and this will help you to understand how the data is captured for telemetry. So first we have, say, the invoice creation. And after the invoice creation, the accounting document is posted. So accounting doc posted. And then the code block is triggered, which captures the telemetry. Now, this code block, if you have, as you can see in this diagram, when it triggers the telemetry, it passes the information to the API. So then, the API, and so this is the telemetry API, and telemetry API processes all the information and sends it to Azure. Now, after this, in SAP, we have any logical unit of work process is concluded with a commit work. And then let me quickly draw. So I'm just making this the database name. Okay, so that's what the regular SAP process is. The end-to-end process. And this I'm talking about any business application. So your logical unit of work will start, it will process the data. In the end, you'll have commit, and after that, the information is saved in the SAP database. Now, I could have captured telemetry information right here and send it to REST API, but I didn't do that. And there is a reason for that. I'll explain that in a moment. So what I'm doing is I'm triggering an asynchronous mode of data capture, which is in a separate logical unit of work. So this is where the API triggers events. These events are getting executed in the background. That's why I named it background process. And then what it does is the telemetry data is stored in buffer. And from this logical unit of work, the end data to rest. And this is where information is sent to Azure. So, okay, now we have the end-to-end process set. So I'll quickly explain how this works. So, this is A, this is the first logical unit of work, and then this is B, the second logical unit of work. So in a normal process, your system is processing SAP application server level data is being processed, it's commit and sent to database. But what I'm doing is I'm capturing the telemetry information in buffer using the event. So this event, it will not send the information to Azure until and unless the first logical unit of work is concluded. And why I'm doing this? Suppose if something goes wrong with this process, if the commit work has failed, and before that, if I've sent the information to Azure, what will happen is on Azure side, you will see, say, invoice X with YZ details showing that this is what occurred in SAP. But when someone comes and checks in the actual system, since the commit work has failed, everything will be rolled out and the information does not exist in the database. So that is why it's critical to make sure that we take the data consistency. And this approach that I've taken, I've designed the payload in such a way that algorithm just passes the payload information. So there is no performance based thing. So what we achieve is something like a perceived performance and a data consistency. So telemetry data is sent to Azure when it's committed and stored in the database. So that's a high-level overview. I hope that explains uh, how the data is captured in telemetry.
Mm-hmm.
Then after this, we have then, when telemetry API, when it processes and builds the payload information, it passed the information to SAP Telemetry framework. This framework was built by our Microsoft digital team, and it has ABAP SDKs, which enables the communication between SAP on Azure, SAP and Azure. Sorry, why? Sorry. So then the platform, it passes information to SAP REST framework. SAP REST framework passes information to SAP Event Gateway. And then from SAP Event Hub Gateway, the SAP payload information is sent to Telemetry Event Hub. Now, Telemetry Event Hub is basically the Azure Event Hub. And one thing we need to understand about data is valuable only when it's easily available for you and you can build out insights from the data source. And that's where Telemetry Event Hub comes. It's a fully managed PaaS service offering by Azure, and it lets you, analyze the distributed event stream, and it has a very low latency. So Telemetry Event Hub processes millions of records per second, and it's seamlessly integrated to other Azure components like application insights. So the data after it comes to Telemetry Event Hub, then I'm using the application insight to build the monitoring solutions in Azure. Application Insight is the application performance management APM service of Azure. And this is where I'm building solutions which does monitoring, alerting, and all the analytics-based capabilities. So from the telemetry, from the application insight, I'm using Kusto Explorer or Azure Data Explorer to process warm and hot data respectively. After a certain amount of time, this data, hot and warm data stream, it's taken and stored in the Azure data lake for, archiving or for storage of a longer amount of time. What Azure provides you is, and this Azure Data Explorer is the central repository that we use to capture SAP telemetry bound details. Now, Azure provides a very unique feature to dynamically convert your queries. So basically, we use a programming language called Kusto query language, where we go, and I'll show you in a while how this captures and builds insight with SAP information. What Azure does is it lets you dynamically convert that into a M query, which we can pass to Power BI. And the advantage of that is it saves a lot of time for engineers. You don't have to, learn another set of language. Basically, we use DAX to build insights in Power BI. You can directly pass it, and that's it. You can go and build out the dashboard using your data sets, and you have all the visibility. Then coming back again to the application insights, in the step S, I have defined dynamic alerts. This is where the machine learning feature of Azure comes in. The alerts are triggered when the data matrices, it crosses some threshold or it finds some anomaly. So what the alert does is, from the alert side, I'm creating automated tickets. So automated tickets are created. We can connect, use for the ticketing, we can use either the webhook to connect to the ICM, which is the Microsoft central ticketing solution, or I'm using the ICM connectors. So this is where this gives me the flexibility. I have built out the routing rules. So what it does is, when alerts are automatically triggered, it analyzes the data and passes to the respective teams bucket for which, the process has failed. Now, this ticket, it's not just a ticket, it's a smart ticket. It's telling you what and why of a failure. Remember, other tickets, they are coming to you when something has failed, the user is already impacted. You can see in this framework, and I'll explain, how if something goes wrong, within few minutes, you have alerts fired, you have ticket created, assigned to your service operation bucket, and they can go and save a lot of time. And when they're going and looking at the ticket, they already have the impact information, what has failed and why has failed, which can help them to drive the how part really quickly. And in one of the matrices section, you will see how this has decreased the total time to mitigate and total time to resolve a ticket.
Maybe we should go directly in demo because considering time, maybe it's better that to show that in demo.
Sure.
It will be much more clear too.
Sure. I will cover it. How much time do we have left? I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the clock. So, okay, so I'll make it quick. So, so basically, you see this is the event section, and in the event section, the APIs that fire the Azure Telemetry, they are passing the SAP bound information. So you have the timestamp, error code, invoice information, communication error. This is sample data that I've triggered from the SAP side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have a KQL, Kusto query language, that I'm going to use to build the insights. So KQL is the basic query language developed by Microsoft, and it's used across different platforms, Azure platforms like Azure Security Center and Azure App Insights and Azure Data Explorer. So there are a lot of different places where we use Kusto. The best feature about Kusto is it's a syntax-rich language. It has a big data analytics inbuilt, and it has machine learning features. So you can do different machine learning based operations like the basket analysis, diff patterns, auto clusters. What it allows you, the ML based operations the Kusto has is the algorithms let you find the different occurrences, which will help to provide insight in the data that you're looking for. So along with that, it helps you, to build insights. So that's why Kusto is really awesome, and it simply transforms the SAP information which is coming in. Now, let me quickly write a sample query that will show you how the information is captured from the SAP side. So what I'll do is this is a ASP.NET Core web application, and I'm just using it to simulate the SAP information. So you can see I have invoice and timestamp and accounting document information. So I'm just passing to set of information.
So what are you simulating there now? An invoice that is coming into the SAP system.
Yeah, so basically I'm simulating the payload that will come from the invoice side. Mm-hmm. So basically, otherwise, we have to go through the whole process of sales order creation, invoice creation. So it really saves the time. And now that this is fired, let's quickly go in here. I also wanted to cover the API design, but I'll do that in the end because that's if we have time. So how this is captured is we have something called as custom events. So custom events are like the tables in which data is stored on the Azure side. And then I'm using this tabular operator where, so basically this gets triggered when a predicate is met or when a Boolean expression is satisfied. So then the event name that we have is invoice posted. And then I want to process for the last 3 days. And I'm using this extend operator. So what extend operator does is it's let you build a result data set. And now I'm using as you can see, I'm going along. You'll see a lot of inbuilt operators that Kusto has, which really transform the way, you program and capture data. Now, Tour Dynamics, it's a scalar operator. You can use parse JSON also. And this allows to, get the values dynamically from a data set. So custom dimension is like a deep structure where the SAP payload information that we have passed, this information, when this comes to Azure side, as you can see here, this gets stored in the custom property. So this is why I'm using this here. So then the project operand, this will just project the details that is coming from the backend side. So I'm passing details like invoice, company code. Maybe I'll take details like what was the total communication time that SAP took to call the external system, and then what was the error, and if we had any, what was the total number of count. I'll not take much fields in the interest of time. Now, standard coding practice is we make sure that they're not redundant values. So I'm just making sure invoice and then the company code, And then external system communication time. And one last field is external system count. By the way, let me also take timestamp. So we are almost done with the query. What I'll do is write one last condition just to make sure that, the invoice we are taking, because there'll be a lot of information flowing into the Azure system. So we want to make sure that we are just processing for invoice. Now, we are done with the query. Let's run it. Okay, so you can see it is returning the result data set that I've built. This is the value of the invoice that I just changed. And you can see, the invoice number coming, company code coming, and maybe let me pick anything with error. So for last 3 days, it's basically giving you a set of information for which, and I can, just add new values like what was the error type, and it will simply appear. And, from here, what we can do is we can export this into a Power BI M query, and your analytics solution is ready. Then the alert features, it also uses, a Kusto based approach to find out the anomalies in the system, and it fires up the processes, anything which goes wrong. Now,
so just to quickly summarize, Amber, just to make sure that it's clear to everyone. So with this, we have now all the information in an Azure data lake, basically. And with Kusto, we can now query the information like the invoice numbers, like these errors, directly here from this Kusto Explorer, basically. So, and with this, we have all the data accessible now from Azure, basically, and can, like you said, trigger alerts or can create tickets automatically. And now what you just wanted to show is, because we have the data there, we have it now also, or can also visualize it in Power BI.
Yes, that's correct. Just one point to add on that. So Azure Data Explorer we use for hot data. So hot data means, the recent data. So basically, if you want to drive your daily business operations, and that's what the solution that I built, the tax team, that's what it's using. It's using the hot data from Azure Data Explorer to drive the daily, service operation side of the world. For warm data, we are using the cold data. So for warm data, we are using the Kusto Explorer. The data lake is mostly for the cold data, and it's stored for archiving and any other processes. But what you see, it's a sample demo dashboard that I have created for the Power BI. So this one, now before telemetry, if someone would ask me, hey, Amber, how's your team doing? So my answer would be like, well, yeah, we are doing good. We had this number of tickets last month, and our web services are good. Our bad jobs are doing okay. This kind of information. But with telemetry, it's completely changed. I have analytics bound information to tell someone that, hey, you know what, we are doing good because our service line health is 99.98%. It's a near success scenario. So all the invoices that we processed, 99.98% of them were successful. And this information is coming because of, SAP on Azure Telemetry. So, and I think for example, sorry, you were saying?
No, I was just saying, typically when we look in the context of SAP on this, we talk then about availability or something like that. My virtual machine is running great. But now with this, we have insights really into the business processes of an SAP system.
That's correct. Yes. Yes. And, like in this case, you can see that what I have done is, so you are also looking at if something, say, for example, 60 invoices have failed. Now, why this 60 has failed? In earlier case, you have to go and dig it out. Now, telemetry is already telling you that because of the error returned by external system, this has failed. And when I click over here, all the sample invoices, they get sorted. What you see here is the trend that gives you insight into how the system performance is behaving. So you can define and predict anomalies, when a live system is being processed. To give you an example, I'll have this information in one of the later slides where I'll show you how the anomaly was pointed out by telemetry, and we fixed that process, and that resulted in stabilizing a new process. And that was a problematic one for us. So basically, all the information data is coming from Power BI. You can simply visualize it and see as per your need. You're getting informations like what's your service line performance. You're getting informations like what was the total number of calls happening, and then all the information at your disposal that you would need for data analytics.
Cool. So Amber, this is what we are doing at Microsoft Digital. So now if I'm watching the YouTube channel today, this episode, and if I think, well, can I do this myself? So are we offering this also? Do we have the building blocks that customers can do it? How would a customer do this?
So I have this covered in the user story section, what the question that you have asked. So we do have a couple of white papers published that talks about the high level design, and you can reach out to us any point of time to know how the architecture is designed, how we are capturing the information end to end.
Can we maybe jump to this section to talk about how customers can actually use it?
Oh, sure, we can do that.
Cool.
So this is the user story that's going to talk about how the users will do it. So, like to answer your question, suppose this is dude and he's saying that his company runs SAP on Microsoft Azure, which is amazing. So basically all the infra IaaS solutions they're using, and now they're looking for more options on how Microsoft Azure can help the digital transformation for SAP business process. Then this is us and DGS, and he's saying that before we start, have you heard about SAP on Azure Telemetry? This is the perfect solution to digitally transform your SAP processes. Then, the customer, they'll ask how they are going to implement the telemetry solution, and can this solution help them to, do the service line health monitoring and to troubleshoot any processes that is happening with, their business. So DVS replies that yes, we can do all of that, and for that, in order to design, the reference architecture, we have at GitHub, the ABAP SDK. So you can refer that to design ABAP SDK solution. Obviously, you would need guidance from Microsoft side on, how to map end-to-end business process and events. And, if you go to the SAP on Azure website, you will find the white papers and details using which you can reach out and, we can help you do that. Then, the customer says that they have deployed SAP on Azure Telemetry and they are ready to go. But then again, DVS is recommending that there are a couple of things that need to be made sure that and this is where the part is review your solution to make sure that it's running well and the best practices are followed with insights and feature innovations centered on the user experience. So yeah, this is like a high level user story where, using which if you are watching this video or if you want to, go for SAP on Azure Telemetry, just follow the steps that I talked about, reach out to us, and you also have documentation at SAP on Azure portals, the white papers, and a GitHub ABAP SDK link, which can be used to connect with the REST framework.
Cool. I think we'll definitely include the relevant links to the white paper.
I'll share the links.
Perfect. I think that's a great story, and I mean it's amazing what you have done, what Microsoft Digital is doing to really get a closer look at what's actually happening within the SAP system, really going away from this black box approach to really see what's happening, and then being able, like what you showed in the Kusto query, to get better insights, to have the data easily accessible, and then to do machine learning on top of this, to create tickets automatically, visualize the data. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I think what is very important to notice here is that telemetry, what we are getting from heart of the SAP systems, we can combine with this flexible infrastructure and then decide, do we need more application servers? When I need more application servers, when I need more power, and so on. And this is really a combination. Is very important.
Digital Hubbard. So what you're saying is the infrastructure layer. We also have telemetry for infrastructure layer. So there are different layers for which we capture telemetry. It's not just limited to the business process. We are also capturing for application layer and for infrastructure layer.
I think we should definitely do a deep dive on that at some point in time, so that we really take a closer look at. So now basically we've seen how you're capturing the data, what the different components, how you how we get the data into Kusto basically. But the next step would then really be, and maybe we should schedule another meeting where we take a closer look at what are you actually doing with the data at Microsoft Digital. So now we have it, we can correlate it with information from Azure. So now what are the things that we can do, or what you are already doing at Microsoft Digital on this?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably worth to spend another hour or so and taking a look at that.
Good.
So, I'll just quickly talk about two things because it's important to give this information. This is more or less already covered. These are the different features that telemetry offers: data and predictive analytics, real-time alerts with intelligent tickets, and performance anomalies detection, all kind reporting. I have this matrices from SAP team where this solution was deployed for entire AR, and you can see how the reporting becomes 90% faster. So the service line health reporting earlier, it was taking something like 20 hours. Now this is done in less than an hour because you can dynamically build information from the dashboard and no need to, get your hand dirty and dig out things in SAP. One of the major things that any SAP project across the world is they have to do hypercare reporting. Basically, when your projects went live and any point of time for any migration or onboarding or, for new projects, you have to do a lot of information is required from IT and engineering side. Telemetry provides answer for all of that. And before telemetry, we didn't have any tickets, automated tickets to capture the trends. Now you can see, since we started, in around the first quarter, we had more than 40 tickets captured, automated tickets. And remember, these all could have been the potential errors which telemetry captured. And it also reduces the time to mitigate and time to resolve. So these are a couple of matrices. Then in the end, I'll talk about our North Star vision. What do we want to achieve with telemetry? So with telemetry, we want to make sure that Microsoft Azure is the dominant cloud platform for SAP. It's not just the infrastructure level solution that Azure is offering to you. You can control your sizing horizon. You can, make sure that SAP runs best across the world with respect to infrastructure. But with respect to running your business process, your applications, telemetry gives you the right kind of tooling that helps you run your process smoothly and, reduce your cost with respect to the service operations and, with respect to the process issues that you face throughout the project life cycle. So yeah, that's the high level information.
No, Amber, thank you. I think the really interesting is, I think you showed a lot of things and you teased and introduced a lot of topics. So I think it would definitely make sense to have a deep dive maybe in some of the other topics. So how are you doing the machine learning?
100%.
I very much like this the slide where you talked about speeding up the reporting processes basically, and where you can actually see in the data that implementing this process helps. So that, as you said, you're not reacting to when a ticket is created or when the escalation is already there, but you can already see something has or will happen, and you can already react on this upfront. So I think that's really interesting, and yeah, maybe we can really spend some time on that in a future episode and really take a closer look at that.
Sure.
Cool. Well, with this, I think we can close the session today. I think that was a very insightful presentation on what's going on with Microsoft Digital again, how we're working with tickets, how we turn a black box SAP system into a white box SAP system. So Amber, thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll see you again with additional details on this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Oliver.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.